meeting. And due to the governor's stay at home and stay safe order, and due to public health concerns, we have taken our meeting back to Zoom, and the public has been provided a Zoom link and call-in numbers to participate in this evening's meeting. So at this time, I would, Brandy, if you could bring up the flag, I'd ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have a published agenda. Councilmember Aspie, do you have any amendments to this evening's agenda?
Yes, I do. I would move that we remove consent agenda E, since Mr. Rosepepe was able to join us this evening via Zoom.
Second.
And under business items, 7D, I would move to remove that item from our agenda this evening.
Your second still holds, Scott, were both of those items?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
And the reason we're moving the action item related to the efficiency goals is we're holding a public hearing tonight, and we're not 100% certain that we provided proper notice to everybody when we changed formats. So we're just going to keep the public meeting or the public hearing open at the end of, and continue it to our next meeting, and then close the public hearing at our first meeting there in August, and then conduct that business item. So that's the plan. Okay. So the motion and a second to remove consent items E and business items D. Any discussion or questions regarding those? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been amended. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Diener and a second by Councilmember Lucarelli to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is set. We're to our public hearing now. Excuse me, we're to the consent items. Is there a motion to approve?
How about the citizens' comment, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, how about that? All right, this is our first citizen comment period. I was jumping all over the place here. And the first citizen comment period is for any items on this evening's agenda, and citizens are allowed 3 minutes to address the council. If you wish to address the council, please raise your hand and the clerk will acknowledge you and bring you into the meeting.
At this time, Mayor, I do not see any member of the public raising their hand to speak.
Okay. All right. I will close the first citizen comment period. There's a second citizen comment period at the end of the meeting. We're now to our consent items. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Cacciardi to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussion of the consent items? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent items have been approved. Now we're to that public hearing. Mr. Dorsey, here you have a public hearing related to the adoption of a resolution approving and adopting the 2021 through 2030 water use efficiency goals and performance measures. Go ahead, Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. In 2003, the Washington State Legislature passed engrossed second substitute House Bill 1338, better known as the Municipal Water Law, to address the increasing demand for the state's water resources. The law established that water suppliers must use water more efficiently in exchange for water rights certainty and the flexibility to meet future demand. The legislature passed requirements within the Washington Administrative Code 246-290 and directed the Department of Health to adopt an enforceable water use efficiency program, which became effective in January of 2017. Consistent with this law, the city must set a water use efficiency goal and measure progress each year toward meeting the goal. The goal must include a measurable outcome, address water supply characteristics, and include an implementation schedule. The city must also evaluate or implement efficiency measures to help meet the goal. By resolution number 049-21, the city would set a water use efficiency goal of reducing the per capita water use by 0.5% annually over the next 10 years. Staff recommends opening and holding the public hearing.
Muted myself. Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Are there any members of the public that wish to provide testimony related to the water use efficiency goals and performance measures? So at this time, I will open the public hearing. And if you wish to testify on this matter, please raise your hand and the clerk will bring you into the meeting to testify.
Mayor, at this time, I have no one that's raised their hand to comment or testify on the public hearing.
Thank you, Clerk Reinerson. I'm going to leave the public hearing open until our next council meeting, where we will continue to take testimony on this matter. And we'll see this again as a continuation on the first meeting in August. We'll move to our business items now. The first of which is an adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, chapters 13.04 regarding water and sewer CFC exceptions. Mr. Crocker, this is yours.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Business item 7A is a continuation, which we have been talking about for several weeks now regarding water and sewer CFC exceptions. We first started talking about this at the June 8th, 2020 regular city council meeting, where we presented some information regarding the current structure in the code. And we provided some presentation material on how we would propose changing the current code. On July 20th, the Finance Committee met, as well as the full council study session, reviewed the code again and the policy direction that staff has provided. And the Finance Committee and council both gave us the green light forward and asked us to bring this ordinance back to modify our chapter 1304 code, streamlining our water CFC exceptions tests, as well as establishing some standards for how we calculate our ERU. Additional edits to the chapter 1304 are included in this ordinance to clarify the city's front footage fee and allow for the use of agreements in lieu of assessment in limited circumstances. The ordinance also includes an exemption for accessory uses such as accessory dwelling units, ADUs, family daycare, home occupation, or home businesses from the CFC fee or calculation, provided that they qualify for the exemption. And in particular, we talked about that this exemption is available for ADUs 1,000 feet or 1,000 square feet or less, and must be served by the main principal dwelling units meter. All other accessory uses must use less than 180 gallons per day of water to qualify for the exemption. So with that, staff would recommend adopting the ordinance as amended and attached.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to adopt an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 13.04 as presented.
Seconded.
A motion by Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Clausen. I know we've talked about this subject matter extensively between committees and the last work study session, but are there any further questions of staff regarding this matter? I just want to acknowledge and thank Noah and Nick, Mark, Charlie. You guys, I know you're all extremely busy, but this is an important issue, in particular for some significant projects out there to clarify our code, make it fairer and equitable for redevelopment projects. And I really appreciate the effort you put into this. This happened fairly quickly as far as government goes, to do something like this in a few months. Councilmember Cachardi?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment. You know, you read things on social media, and this is one thing that's been talked a little bit about. And this really is our effort to make sure that, you know, new development is paying for new development, right? And I know some people think that, oh, we're raising these costs, and this is a way for us to avoid passing these costs on to our existing constituents. And so I just wanted to make that clarifying statement that this is our effort to make certain that new development is paying the cost for new development.
Yes, in a fair and equitable manner, where our code was quite confusing and could be interpreted in many different ways. So now it's very clear. There's examples, and it's just a much cleaner code. But thank you for that comment, Councilmember Cachardi. Other questions or statements? Councilmember Ashby?
Yeah, I would just acknowledge, again, the work that staff did and the council did, being responsive to testimony we heard when we were establishing these CFCs. Because the people that are doing redevelopment for us had some very serious concerns and very legitimate concerns. And as the mayor indicated, staff was able to address those in a timely manner so that these projects could move forward, because I know our entire community is looking forward to redevelopment.
Thank you for that comment. All right. Any last comments or questions? Hearing none, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, chapters 13.04, regarding water and sewer CFC exceptions. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item is item B, adoption of an ordinance approving a contract with the Washington State Department of Health for the continuation of the Well 11 development, treatment, and booster pump station project. Mr. Dorsey, this is you.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On November 19th of 2020, the city's Public Works Department applied for a $5 million Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, or DWSRF, construction loan through the Washington State Department of Health for the continuation of the multi-phase well number 11 development, treatment, and booster pump station project. On January 28, 2021, the Department of Health informed the city that it would not be receiving the construction loan funding, but did advise the city consider applying for a $500,000 pre-construction loan. Subsequently, and upon the successful submittal of the loan application, the Department of Health has awarded the city of Port Orchard the following. The loan amount is $510,000. That includes a $10,000 loan origination fee, 10 years, 0% interest, and it has a project completion date of July 27, 2023, and it does have a July 27, 2020 effective date. So we can actually go back and capture some of the costs that we already have with our Murray Smith contract if needed. The Well 11 site improvement project was identified as a priority task for the Public Works Department, and acceptance of the loan and execution of the associated contract with the Department of Health is necessary to continue this project. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt ordinance number 021-21, approving contract number C054-21 with the State Department of Health and accepting the DWSRF pre-construction loan in the amount of $510,000 pursuant to the terms and conditions.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 021-21, authorizing the mayor to execute contract number C054-21 with the Washington State Department of Health and accepting a DWSRF pre-construction loan in the amount of $510,000.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, second by Councilmember Lucarelli. You know, Councilmember Ashby and I are both former bankers, and I know they're calling this a loan, but I never underwrote a 0% loan in my entire career. So this is a pretty doggone good deal. So hats off to Mark and his staff for getting this 10-year 0% loan is a phenomenal deal for us to advance this project. So other
I would echo your same comments, Mr. Mayor. seldom if ever see a 0% loan.
Yeah, this is a great deal. And questions for Mr. Dorsey or comments, further comments? Okay. Councilmember Rose Pepe.
I would echo both what the mayor and Councilmember Clausen said, but I would add one thing that the mayor and Councilmember Ashby are reform bankers.
I think to answer that, really, the Department of Health with these pre-construction loans are really trying to initiate projects. And so the more they can make it an incentive to go ahead and take on that debt service, the more they'll be able to move projects forward then through the construction phase. And by accepting this loan, it increases our chances of getting the $5 million construction loan.
Now you've set the bar at 0% though.
I don't think their construction loans are 0. I think their construction loans are 2%.
Okay. Still a good deal.
It's a very good deal.
Is that 2% they pay us, or do we have to pay them?
I think that's
Oh, yes.
All right. Any further questions, comments? Will you be voting on the adoption of an ordinance approving a contract with the Washington State Department of Health for the continuation of the Well 11 Development, Treatment, and Booster Pump Station Project? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract has been approved. We're to item 7C, approval of amendment number 2 to contract number 048-20 with Murray Smith Inc. for the 2020-2021 McCormick Woods Well Number 11 Site Improvement Project Final Design and Bid Support, Phase 2. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you. On May 16th, 2020, the Port Orchard City Council adopted Resolution 015-20 approving contract C048-20 with Murray Smith Inc. for the 2020-21 McCormick Woods Well 11 Phase 1 Site Improvement Schematic or 30% design project in the amount of $94,673. Note that the original procurement process covered all phases in the design when we went through the advertising. On November 25th, 2020, the Public Works Director authorized Amendment 1 to the contract, which was amending the term of the contract, but not increasing the dollar amount in order to provide time to seek additional project funding from other sources. And then earlier in tonight's meeting, the City Council took action to formally accept the Department of Health's drinking water state revolving fund program pre-construction loan in the amount of $510,000. So with this loan in place now, staff prepared Amendment 2 to the contract. By this amendment, Murray Smith Inc. will move forward to the final design and bid support or Phase 2 for the added amount of $628,733. Please recall that the Well 11 Site Improvement Project was identified as a priority task for the Public Works Department and that it was decided to implement a phased approach to the project. Therefore, having completed the Phase 1 site improvement schematic 30% design and having received the Well 11 pre-construction loan in the amount of $510,000, authorization of amendment number 2 is now needed to continue with Phase 2. Please also note that in November 2021, the city's Public Works Department will be applying to the Department of Health through the 2022 DWSRF for the Phase 3 construction in the amount of $5 million. Staff recommends authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 2 to contract number C048-20 with Murray Smith Inc. for Phase 2 of the 2020-2021 McCormick Woods Well Number 11 Site Improvement Project, final design and bid support in the additional amount of $628,733.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute amendment number 2 to contract number C048-20 with Murray Smith Inc. for Phase 2 of the 2020-2021 McCormick Woods Well Number 11 Site Improvement Project final design and bid support in an additional amount of $628,733.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Clausen, that second by Councilmember Diener. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Cacciardi.
Mark, just for clarification on the last sentence of your staff report, the application for that $5 million through the DOH, just for clarification, maybe for minutes purposes, that's a loan, correct?
Yes, it is. It is
So
Did I
maybe
say-
this, but it's not a grant.
correct.
Did I say grant?
No, you didn't. It doesn't call it out. So perhaps maybe we just, for the record, we should just say that we're applying for a loan.
Okay,
Yes, that is correct. We'll be applying for a low interest loan. We believe of 2%.
Correct.
Any other questions? Mr. Clausen, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment that with this project, and as soon as we can get the construction complete, it's going to certainly improve the water system for the city of Port Orchard and provide a tremendous amount of reliability in our opportunities to provide service. And final comment, that's the fastest I've ever spent $500,000.
so I guess instead of waiting the department head update, this is probably a more appropriate time to update you on Foster, in that we've now submitted to the Department of Ecology our record of examination, which is actually the deliverables needed for us to complete the Foster pilot project. So really, now that it's in the Department of Ecology's hands, following the state legislature's guidance on setting up the Joint Legislative Task Force, we are now in the position to really see if the water rights will be resolved. We're pretty much done with our deliverables and our studies, and once we hear back from Ecology, the final task will have our water rights attorney finalizing all the change applications so that we can get water rights. So there's good timing on this, and hopefully the legislature and the Department of Ecology will act on our record of examination.
It's also just, go ahead. Go ahead.
When do you think that will occur, Mark? Any best guesses?
No,
Before Jackie Brown retires.
yeah, well, we've got
Okay.
it submitted, so that's a major milestone. What happens now, I have no idea.
Just for every refresher here too, for the public and for none of you guys are newer council members, but you should remember this, that remember we have 3 shallow aquifer wells out at McCormick Woods. One doesn't produce water anymore, and we're getting diminishing returns out of the other wells. And we were mandated to get out of the shallow aquifer and drill this deep aquifer well, which we did years ago. This is just the infrastructure to draw that water out. So part of this well has more capacity than those 3 wells that we're replacing. So we're going to be able to immediately draw water to replace the water that we're drawing out of those other wells. But this well has capacity to produce even more water. And so that's the Foster component of this, so that, and it's designed in a manner that we can use it when it's done, if Foster isn't completed, to replace the existing wells. And when Foster's completed, we can turn the valve and we'll be able to draw that additional capacity out of this well versus having to drill another well.
We're basically going to double our withdrawal.
That's the plan. Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, you'll be voting on amendment number 2 to contract number 04820 with Murray Smith Inc. for the 2020-21 McCormick Woods Well 11 site improvements, final design and bid support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract is approved. We removed item D. We're on to item E. Adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all documents required to enter into an assignment of Department of Natural Resources aquatic lands lease. Ms. Archer, this is you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Before you this evening is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all documents, including an assignment necessary to transfer a Department of Natural Resources aquatics land lease from its current lessee, Kitsap Bank, to the city. This action became necessary as part of the negotiated purchase and sale of the Kitsap Bank headquarters, the parcel intended for future use as the South Kitsap Community Event Center. You may recall that that parcel located at 619 Bay Street is partially encumbered adjacent to aquatic lands that are subject to a Department of Natural Resources or DNR aquatic lands lease. A requirement for the city to assume that lease, which currently expires in 2025, is the execution of an assignment. We do not yet have the assignment. That is something that DNR drafts, and they're in the process of drafting that. But through this resolution, the council will authorize the mayor to execute that assignment and any necessary documentation that DNR requires to effectuate that assignment in a form acceptable to the city attorney. The assignment is a condition of the due diligence period for the purchase and sale agreement. So this is a step in the process towards that purchase. And again, this is a requirement of DNR, and the document is a DNR document that we will be receiving in the near future. But this is a step that they are requiring, an affirmative act by the council to authorize the mayor to be the signatory on that assignment when it is finished. And I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an assignment of DNR lease number 22-A02336 and all associated documents for the future South Kitsap Community Event Center.
Second it.
Motion by Councilmember Diener, second by Councilmember Clausen. And Charlie's been working with DNR on this. We think around the end of September that this lease assignment should be perfected. That's what we're working towards. So Councilmember Cacciardi.
Yeah, just for clarification, the improvements described in paragraph 1, including the concrete seawall, riprap pavement, landscaping, et cetera, are we taking on the liability to maintain those assets moving forward with this lease?
Arguably, yes. The bank and the city's lease agreement shifts the obligations associated with the DNR lease, including payment for the DNR lease, to the bank for the duration of their lease back, which you recall is part of the tenancy or part of the purchase and sale agreement, rather. So that's still approximately 2025, the initial period, and then there's an option for extension. So partially, yes, but partially we're passing through some of that risk and responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on that before I get to Councilmember Lucarelli's comment, and in the proposed lease that we're negotiating with the bank, currently we have language that says that if something catastrophic happened to the building or the property there, that like if they want it fixed, they've got to fix it, because we're not going to put a whole bunch of money into the building, so. That's we've tried to insulate ourselves from that.
Right, but from like the seawall perspective, what would happen if the seawall were to collapse?
We ultimately have to fix it, probably.
Yeah, well, it would be subject to we would be sharing essentially in our obligation to DNR, but under the lease agreement, we would be pushing that responsibility to the bank.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I was just curious how much that lease was, the DNR lease, and it's about $12,900 currently, which the bank will be paying, but someday it'll be ours.
Yeah.
Correct. And the rate, so once the assignment of this existing lease terminates, then the city and DNR will be negotiating a long-term lease, and the use of the property at that point will change from a commercial bank to a public facility. And we can assume, but we're not guaranteed that the rental rate would be different in that context. But DNR does have standardized rental rates, and they only negotiate on a regular cycle, I believe, of every 4 years. So there are definitely parameters. That's why I can say we can assume, but we cannot guarantee.
And if also in this, It's right now, the bank building sits half on the fee simple property and half on the DNR. We are very purposeful in building the new community center solely on the fee simple property. And that's why we can't guarantee, but we believe that it'll be open space and for the public, which there's a completely different lease rate for that versus the commercial lease rate. Councilmember Lucarelli, did you have a follow-up question?
Well, I was just wondering, Charlie, would that be a lesser rate, do you think then, given all this information?
That's our hope. We're optimistic that, as the mayor pointed out, open space should be subject to a lower rental rate than a commercial structure.
Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, just in past negotiations with DNR, the area that is now that little park area in front of the marina used to be parking that the city was paying somewhere comparable to what the bank is currently paying. When we converted that to the grass open area, the square foot fee for that area went to 0.
Oh, cool.
So 0 is a good number. That's what we're working towards.
It worked well with interest.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? All right, you'd be voting on adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all documents required to enter into an assignment of a Department of Natural Resources aquatic land lease. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution has passed. We're to item F, adoption of a resolution adopting the final plat of Magnolia Ridge. Mr. Dorsey, you going to take this, or are we going to let Mr. Bond do it?
It's whatever. Nick, are you?
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I wasn't sure since you were here. Okay, so the site identified as Magnolia Ridge, formerly known as Blueberry Ridge, a subdivision granted approval with conditions by the Kitsap County Hearing Examiner on January 23rd of 2007. A SEPA mitigation determination of non-significance was issued for the Blueberry Ridge subdivision on October 19th of 2006. The Magnolia Ridge subdivision creates 105 single-family residential lots, a roadway tract, and an on-site wetland, and its average buffer tract, 3 shared driveway tracts, a stormwater tract, and 2 recreational tracts. The majority of the infrastructure associated with this final plat will be dedicated to the Magnolia Ridge Homeowners Association or the West Sound Utility District. Some outstanding work, such as the required street trees, is bonded under one of several performance bonds submitted with this final plat application. The applicant has installed or bonded for roadway illumination, roads, sidewalks, landscaping, water and sewer, storm drainage improvements, wetland mitigation and enhancement, offsite improvements, signage, and other required improvements as described in the attached bonds and bond estimates. The West Sound Utility District shall be conveyed the sewer and water infrastructure associated with the subdivision. Streets within the final plat shall be privately owned and maintained apart from a portion of the right-of-way to be dedicated to the city of Port Orchard for roadway purposes associated with Southwest Blueberry Road along the southern boundary of the plat. Stormwater funds, streets, shared driveways, and recreational space within the plat are private and will be owned and maintained by the Magnolia Ridge HOA. Staff moves to, or recommendation is adoption of a resolution granting approval of the final plat of Magnolia Ridge.
Sorry for the interruption. Councilmember Chang, go ahead.
I move to adopt a resolution as presented, granting final plat approval for Magnolia Ridge final plat.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Chang, and was that second by Councilmember Diener?
Yes.
Okay. And questions or comments? All right, you'll be voting on adoption of a resolution for the approval of the final plat for the Magnolia Ridge. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the plat has been approved. We're to item G, which is the adoption of a resolution approving amendment number 1 to contract number 06620 with Rice Fergus Miller for phase 1 of the South Kitsap Community Event Center. Mr. Bond, would you like me to take this?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Bond's staff report says on July 28th, 2020, the Port Orchard City Council approved contract number C066.20 with Rice Fergus Miller for professional services on the phase 1 scope of work for the South Kitsap Community Event Center. Additional services are needed from Rice Fergus Miller for the city's requested site design of the off-site area that surrounds the community events center parcel, which is located at 619 Bay Street. This design will provide the city with a basis to estimate the costs of needed off-site improvements and infrastructure and determine how funds will be obtained to support their future construction. The new budget authority is available for 2021 and 22. RFM and the city have conferred and agreed to an increased scope of services and the associated fee, which is described in attachment A, or attachment 1. The fixed amount of the contract number C066-20 is increased by $177,365 from $400,000 to a total of $577,365. Additionally, an hourly not to exceed amount of $33,578 for a geotechnical consultant has been included for a maximum contract increase of $210,943. Staff recommends the council adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 1 to contract number C066-20 with Rice Fergus Miller for the amount of $210,943 for a total amended contract amount of $610,943. Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 1 to contract number C066-20 with Rice Fergus Miller for the phase 1 scope of work on the South Kitsap Community Event Center in the amount of $210,943 for a total amended contract amount of $610,943.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Clausen and a second by Councilmember Lucarelli. And just to refresh everybody's memory, this is for a lot of this is related to the sea level rise data that we got. We know that Bay Street needs to be risen, we think about 1.5 feet. And we need to confirm that and know what height to build sidewalks so that the buildings are at the proper elevation when they're reconstructed. And then there's also the plazas and areas that surround the community center that aren't part of the actual community center that need to be ultimately designed and constructed too. Other questions or comments? Councilmember Ashby, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I did raise my hand. Am I remembering correctly, Noah, that this was the item that you said is not included in the budget and would be a budget amendment?
It is.
Yes, that's correct.
So that would be different than what the staff report says. This is an item that will require a budget amendment.
Does the staff report say that it does need one?
Yeah, just look at the fiscal impact line.
Yeah, yep, you're right. That is incorrect. It is not included in the budget. It was discussed at the retreat and in the buckets of dollars that was informally discussed, but never has been formally approved, and which will require a budget amendment. So that's a good catch, Councilmember Ashby. Thank you.
I would just add that this is absolutely the right time to be doing this level of research as we're gathering due diligence for this entire project. So we fully understand, what we're dealing with moving forward and not doing something out of turn.
Or having buildings built at the wrong height.
The
In our
last
street.
thing we want is a new building to be flooded.
Yeah. Or yeah, all kinds of problems if things aren't at the right height to sea level.
Right.
So, all right, other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. You'll be voting on a resolution proving amendment number 1 to contract number 066-20 with Rice Fergus Miller for phase 1 of the Community Event Center. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is approved. We're to our last business item, and that is the approval of the July 13 City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes as distributed.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Clausen, second by Councilmember Ashby. I believe I'll have an abstention by Councilmember Cacciardi and Councilmember Diener. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And 2 abstentions.
Yes.
Okay, we're back to, we're now to discussion items, and we have one. It is our city's spring and fall cleanup program. Ms. Archer, this is you and not the Public Works Director.
Well, I believe he will be being my support act as well. So feel free to unmute Mark and join in. So this is on the agenda this evening for a very brief discussion. You'll recall, Council, that we discussed the spring/fall cleanup program in April of this year. And the Public Works Director gave you a detailed report as to the impacts of the program on city staff and the costs associated with operating the program, which have increased as the city's size and service area have increased. During that discussion, a few options were raised at an initial level, one of which was exploring the opportunities with established solid waste providers to partner for the program. You'll recall currently the city partners with Waste Management or coordinates rather with Waste Management certain aspects of the program. So the city's Public Works Department does the lion's share of the heavy lifting and actual collection of the items. They do follow the waste management route, and they follow a waste management truck, which pursuant to the city's agreement with Waste Management is simultaneously picking up extra household waste simultaneous to Public Works picking up the bulk of the extra waste. So the instructions from council at that meeting in April were to explore opportunities related to partnerships and to see what potential opportunities there were out there with regards to an established solid waste provider filling in and providing the full scope of this program. We discussed that there are a few other cities in the state of Washington that have not identical programs, but programs that allow for or call for targeted pickup of bulky items at the request of residents. There are some other cities who have programs. The majority of cities that have sort of an extra cleanup program do so at a centralized location, which then requires all residents to bring their items to that centralized location. And we discussed how that wasn't consistent with the council's desires for this program because it obviated the benefit to the residents that, their trash would be picked up at their homes. If they had to travel, they could just travel to the transfer station. But this was a program designed to really help supplement the city's public health and welfare benefits that are afforded to residents with that pickup occurring at their particular home. So we were asked to look and see if solid waste providers in this area would be at all interested in coordinating and actually doing the pickup work and formalizing the program in that way. Unfortunately, our contacts with Waste Management and with attempting to reach others were unsuccessful as far as a solid waste provider taking over the program. Waste Management operates a bulky item pickup program itself, but the costs associated with that range or are on average are approximately, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, 130 to 180 dollars per item, which is dramatically different than the fee schedule the fees that the council has established for this particular program, which range from $10 to $30, depending on the size of the item. So Waste Management, the rates that they're required to charge for bulky items do not lend themselves to a full-fledged partnership for this type of program in its current iteration and using its current parameters. Similarly, no other recycling or waste management, or solid waste providers were identified that would be able to fulfill the needs of the program as set out by the council. So the alternative direction to us from that April meeting was then to develop a policy consistent with the existing program if we were unable to find a partner. And Public Works Director Dorsey and Tony Lang and myself have been meeting to discuss the parameters of the existing policy and developing a policy and procedures manual for this program. As the council is likely aware, the program, although, again, the heavy lifting is done by Public Works, the clerk's office, the finance department, even code enforcement are all involved in the implementation of this program and the success of this program. And so drafting and preparing a procedures manual that details the different roles of each department is the end work product that we're looking at, but we wanted to use this opportunity to report back that we were not successful in finding a partner, to get a gut check with the council and make sure that we're continuing down the right path of developing a policy manual for the existing program with its existing parameters, which I'm happy to go through again. I'm sure you're all familiar with, but unless there is some sort of direction to pivot this evening, that procedure and that policy manual will be presented to you in your next packet for your next agenda or for your next meeting for further discussion. But before you saw that, we wanted to have this sort of gut check conversation and discussion about the program and its parameters in light of the information that we couldn't find a solid waste partner.
Questions or comments? Councilmember Cacciardi?
So as we analyze these SOPs, do we run any risk with kind of the whole idea of gifting of public funds if we're not recovering the costs that it takes to administer this program? I mean, understanding that there's obvious public health benefit behind this.
So I can't speak to legal risk in an open meeting. I can say that I've analyzed the program, and the provision of solid waste and the public health benefit associated with it would undermine any claim that there's a donative intent by the council to spend the money for a donative purpose. And that's typically the analysis when you're dealing with the gifting of public funds issue. But, underlying your question is a very valid policy conversation for the council to have. And as Public Works Director Dorsey pointed out, the costs associated with operating the program grossly exceed any potential offset that you're obtaining through the fees. He can speak to that if you have specific questions about that.
No, it just might be nice, perhaps next week when this comes back to SOP, that maybe we have an executive session to be able to better understand some of those risks.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, just Charlie, you're the attorney, but my understanding, since it's offered to all citizens in Port Orchard, it's not necessarily a gift of public funds when they all are potential recipients. But that aside for a minute, did we have any opportunity to reach out to specifically recyclers versus, I remember one time that one of my neighbors had a piece that he had set out that a recycler came up and asked if they could have it. And basically there was obviously an interest. I can't remember, it was an old stove or something, but I was curious if we reached out to just specifically recyclers versus somebody that's going to come pick up all of it.
We did.
Go ahead, Charlie.
No, I believe we did. I believe Public Works Director Dorsey reached out to some, and I also communicated with a number of cities that utilize specifically recycling programs and then their vendors. Again, without fail, all of those programs are one drop-off location types of programs, not the vendor traveling to the individual property owners. And there wasn't interest in deviating from that model from the ones that I had contacted. I don't know, Mark, if you have anything to add on that.
No, that's fairly consistent. And yeah, because I mean, even you could have items still picked up through waste management. It's just at that exorbitant fee. The cost associated really is the pickup and disposal. And so unless you're entering into a contract where those fees are very high, you're not going to get anybody really interested. We even tried with the junk away, haul away folks, and they weren't even interested. So I think we're just having to develop our own policy and move forward with that.
A few years back too, I took the opportunity to spend a day with Public Works when they did this project, and I didn't see much in the way that anybody would be able to recycle. It was broken sofas and old barbecues. It was truly stuff that was going to the landfill. There wasn't much I saw that someone from a recycling company that would want. It truly is. The benefit to the community is this stuff isn't getting dumped on the side of the road, mattresses and furniture and and getting it hauled off. But Councilman Diener, you had your hand raised.
I was just trying to remember if we had narrowed the discussion down at all to whether we were preferring either a spring or a fall cleanup, or whether we had kind of landed on looking at both. I was trying to remember the direction we were headed when we last talked about this.
I think we were trying to go to one this fall, and then I thought the direction we discussed was a spring cleanup.
Okay.
But it's not set in stone. We were trying to get it though down to an annual event versus 2 times a year, because this has grown so significant. Our city's grown, and so has the event, and it's becoming unmanageable.
That's what I thought. I thought we were looking towards a sort of a singular spring cleanup event.
Yes. Councilmember Charity?
Yeah, that's consistent with what we talked about. I mean, when we heard from Public Works Director, just the amount of hours that this has taken over a calendar year, and all of the other, priorities that they're trying to accomplish, that this seemed to be taking maybe perhaps an unproportionate amount of our Public Works staff time, and other things and priorities were not getting accomplished. So I think we were looking at perhaps a singular event.
Yeah, this is a all hands on deck to do it. And it takes 2 weeks each time we do it to canvass the whole city. So that if you do it twice a year, we've taken everybody away from fixing potholes and cutting brush and fixing other things for a month a year. And that's a lot. Now, the questions or comments? So are you comfortable with what's been laid out and kind of the direction that we're headed? And it sounds like we want to have an executive session too related to this item when we bring it back in a couple of weeks. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Let's get on to our committee reports. See, Economic Development and Tourism meets on August 9th. Have you given a report since your last meeting? I think you did.
Yeah, Fred did.
Yep, that's right. Utilities is August 10th, and I don't believe you met this past month. Land Use is August 4th. I'm positive you haven't met. Festivals, Chimes and Lights.
We met and we were moving forward with a more normal event. I don't know what this week's information is going to do to affect that. We have the marching band lined up. We're working on the choirs. We've got a run lined up, decorated trees. So we're moving forward with a more normal event that's 4 months away, and we're going to do our best with that amount of time.
Thank you. Finance Committee met last week before the work study. Mr. Clausen, do you have a report?
Well, an awful lot of what we talked about, the council has either dealt with at the last work study or somewhat this evening. But we did talk about, our sales tax receipts and our refunding receipts, and they continue to come in very strong. We're about 33% over what we had budgeted for this period, which is obviously good. For the biennium, we're about 31% collected for the biennium, which in theory, this goes through June, which would be basically 1/4 of the biennium. So being 31% at 25% into the budget, that's a pretty good deal when it comes to revenue. REIT money is equally as strong, if not even stronger. So we're financially, we're doing quite well. We did talk about, for example, the fees that we did tonight with the CFC charges and things of that nature. We did also talk about kind of an update briefly on City Hall and where we were with that project. We talked about briefly the parking enforcement, some of the challenges that our chief is experiencing right now with staffing and parking enforcement. So he's looking at a couple different options there as far as possibly contracting out parking enforcement. And then we talked briefly about some staffing changes that the mayor is proposing with Plan Tech versus 2 positions. It's essentially a situation where we have an individual that's quite qualified to be advanced, and it's of interest to maybe move that position up sooner so that we don't lose that position to the job market that's out there and some of the challenges that everyone is experiencing in hiring. So it was a very good discussion. We filled the entire time allotment for all of these issues that we've either dealt with or I'm sharing tonight. So Beck, I don't know if there's anything I missed that you want to add.
No, I think you covered it.
On that planning position, it was taking our associate planners and creating opportunity when they get these certifications and demonstrate the skills to make them senior planners. We have 1 senior planner, 2 associate planners, and they're both been with us. One's been with us 5 years and the other one's been with us 10 years or more. And there's a lot of job openings out there. And I think Mr. Diener would love to hire either one of them at Kitsap County, and we don't want to allow him to do that. So
Very competitive with people being able to work from home now, leveled the playing field across all the jurisdictions.
yeah, that's what we're seeing too. And then I've got we're working with the Teamsters Union right now. Public Works has hired both of our parking enforcement folks away, and we are looking at outsourcing this. But in the meantime, they're both working in Public Works, and I don't have anybody enforcing parking. So we're working on a memorandum of understanding with the Teamsters Union to allow us to borrow that union employee to do parking enforcement part-time, so that we can get some parking enforcement out there while we analyze this other alternative. So more to come on that one. Transportation Committee met tonight. What do you have to report, Councilmember Ashby?
Yeah, we did meet this evening and we had an update on the Bethel Lincoln roundabout. That is moving forward. And we got a briefing on a study that was done on the impact that project may have on the Bethel Lund intersection. And it appears as though any effect on the Bethel Lund intersection will be minimal. It was, the numbers were very, very close as to current conditions and what they will be like while we're constructing and when the roundabouts are functional. We then spent more time on discussing potentials for the federal funding competition that will be held in 2022. Right now, PSRC has a project selection task force working, and KRCC's Transportation Policy Board will start working on that project selection criteria in September. So we spent a bit of time in that realm today, mainly because I have been the representative to Port Orchard on those committees for several years now. And I'm trying to share some of that information with other committee members so that everyone is up to speed when I'm no longer on the city council. And then we talked a little bit about the Community Event Center amendment to the Rice-Fergus contract that we approved earlier this evening. And that was basically our meeting. And we will not be meeting in August. Our normal meeting date is the fourth Tuesday ahead of the council meeting. And because council's not meeting, we will not meet again until the fourth Tuesday in September.
Thank you, Councilmember Ashby. Sewer Advisory Committee, I believe you had a meeting there last week.
Yes, we met actually at the sewer plant. We talked about the plant upgrades that they worked on this year, some vinyl coated fencing, the vinyl part being to help with corrosion. They've had quite a lot of corrosion in the past, so this is to help keep that fence lasting longer. An asphalt overlay, and then a discussion took place about the Sharples solids thickening equipment that's needed for the future, about $1 million investment that they're trying to work into an upcoming budget with some concerns. We had an update on the Marina Pump Station, the $13 million to rebuild, but that's something that we have also heard about in the past, the last council meeting or so. And then a discussion about how the ERU count is going to be coming out for this next year. They were concerned because the city has a decrease, which means that the district will have to pay more, but they're waiting for some final numbers, and our own department will help get more information in because with the 2020 basic shutdown of a lot of commercial businesses, that count may be off. So all that said, we're meeting again in September, on September 22nd.
Okay, thank you for your report. Councilmember Rosa Pepe, do you have anything to report on the lodging tax?
Yes, the committee heard the council loud and clear when they took their vote. We're meeting on Thursday, and we'll bring back a change in the recommendation to the next meeting. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for your report. Look forward to seeing your new allocations. Beck, do you have anything for outside agencies?
No, it's been kind of quiet. KRCC does not meet again until September. At our last meeting, we moved the CPPs forward to the county for ratification. And so the cities and other jurisdictions should see those back sometime September, the first part of October for ratification. PSRC continues to do this project selection task force, although the rest of their committees are not necessarily meeting in August. The project selection task force is continuing to work.
Okay, thank you. Two of my outside agency, Housing Kitsap, we had our board meeting this morning. I'm very impressed with our new executive director who started less than a month ago and getting things in order. That's which need to happen over there. The financial statements and the where we're behind on audits and with many of those, at least we've got action plans. While it's not all done, she's only been there less than a month. We have definitive action plans, and I guess I'm encouraged by that. Kitsap Transit, I think it was last Saturday, the foot ferry started on, or last Sunday. We had foot ferry service for the first time in, since I don't know when. And I think the high-speed ferries start this Friday with their extended service on Friday night and on Saturdays. So
Saturday. We're not
On
extending
Saturday?
it on
Okay.
Friday. Yeah, just
All right.
Saturday.
wonderful. And let's see, mayor's report. Be brief here. I got a couple of things. Probably saw this press release about the splash pad. Due to the hot weather and the lack of rain, we'll be reducing the hours of operation on the splash pad to Saturdays only to conserve water. And the community center, we had a really good stakeholder meeting last week. I'm really excited about some of the floor plan changes and the changes in the concepts. And we don't have a work study next month, so we'll be bringing that back to you for all of you to see at the September work study. Is the plan for you guys to see the latest iterations of the community center. And then as I'm required to notify you of changes to personnel policies, we've updated our personnel policies to include grandchildren in the list of immediate family members for bereavement leave. I felt that was very appropriate. Hopefully no grandparent ever has to go through that, but if you do, we will provide bereavement leave for that. So that is the mayor's report and report of department heads. I only have a couple of you. Mr. Crocker, do you have anything to share this evening?
No, I have nothing new for the council this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dorsey?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Ms. Floyd? Or how about Ms. Reinerson, since Brandy's here?
Gosh, it seems like it's been forever since I've seen the council. I'll get out of the glow behind me here. No, I don't have anything either to report this evening.
Okay. Ms. Archer?
Nothing to report this evening. Thanks.
Okay, I will report the project here on Sydney is going far better than we thought. The sinkhole wasn't as significant. It was primarily a sewer line that had a big dip in it, the side sewer coming from an alley. And the tree grates were introducing water into the blue clay under the concrete, and which then turned it to like jello in the wintertime. And then Mr. Clausen's transit buses were moving our panels around. So we're going to send Kitsap Transit a bill. And since we have the road closed, there's some substandard repairs that have happened here and there along the street that are being corrected, because once the street gets opened back up, we're not going to touch it again for another 50 years, I hope. And so it's a chance to get all those little, it's concrete. It's not like a blacktop patch. So it's a big deal to do repairs to it. So it's moving along nicely. Unfortunately, I think it's tomorrow, the intersection at Kitsap Street gets closed, and it'll probably be closed a couple of weeks, probably a week of demo and a week putting it back together and the concrete curing before it's reopened. So going up Klein and around Kitsap and Sydney will be about your only route between downtown and the courthouse campus. Let's see here. We are to our second citizen comment period, which is for anything anyone wishes to address the council with, and you would have 3 minutes to address the council. Clerk Reinerson, is there anyone with their hand raised wishing to address the council?
Yes, Mayor, I have one person at this time. I will bring Rob over. Just a moment.
Okay.
He should be in the panelist.
Okay, I see you there. If you want to unmute yourself and turn your video on, we'd love to see you. And you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, Robert McGee, 2065 Bay Street. Wanted to thank Sean Cucciardi for addressing my question from last council meeting about the justifications and costs. I disagree with his justification as it was more of a placation. I think the constituents deserve a real empirical justification, because those increases, as I explained last meeting, those do have an effect on the entire community and the cost of inflation. And frankly, those increases, you've got to justify that because it also kind of goes against your standards of wanting affordable housing in the area. Increasing property taxes and increasing connection fees does not really support affordable housing. So I'd like to see that balance there and why we can justify those fees. I still would like to see a real justification, not just a bunch of words to placate my question. Secondly, I talk a lot about transparency and it's a big thing for me. One of the things about transparency, it's the good and the bad. And I know, and in the city's defense, you get a lot of frivolous litigation. I get that, and I'm on your side on that type of stuff. But there's also legitimate litigation that happens, and the city's always silent about it. The constituents deserve to know how that impacts their tax dollars. And while I understand some litigation, there's going to be some privacy involved to it, and I get that. They also deserve to know what's going on in the good and the bad. Sometimes you fall on the right side of those situations, and sometimes you fall on the wrong side. And I know there's been some litigation recently, you fell on the wrong side, and the community deserves to know that, at least in the capacity that you can tell them, which I understand sometimes there's going to be certain things you can't. But ultimately, you do have the opportunity to make them aware, hey, we've had a situation, here's what it's about, and here's how it's impacted us as a community together. And it would be important to me to kind of see you really lay some of that stuff out as well. It's something that never gets discussed. And frankly, it's important. And I know it's not stuff that you guys are always pleased with. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it is something that I think you do need to have more conversation with the community about. That's all I have for this evening, and I appreciate your time as always.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else, Brandy, that wishes to address the council?
Yes, I have Chuck, and I will move him over in just a moment. All right, he should.
You have 3 minutes to address the council. Can you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Chuck Huck. I'm one of the owners at Whiskey Gulch. I'm like I said, I'm a little frazzled. I lost my child very recently, but I know he'd want me to be here. The one thing I really believe in is community, God, family, and sometimes I feel like we forget that those things go together sometimes. I've been involved in politics with my grandparents for years, and the one thing I used to always say is, as long as you look at each person in a small community first, it'll all work out. And he took that so seriously. Like every person he was always talking to, making sure that they were okay. And if it wasn't, he moved on. And I think there's a lot of good people on the city council, but I think you guys are misguided. I think you guys are wanting to be a Seattle type city council. And I think it's led by a mayor that doesn't care about people. And people matter. And you guys don't show it. You guys talk about bringing in more Seattle people, bringing in, people to, build up the community from outside. But I think you forget about the people that are inside. And I didn't. When my son passed away, I had thousands of people from inside the community reach out to me and show me what a small community is all about. They gathered me in, they held me, they loved me. And my goal is, until this community, until this city council, we have a mayor that cares about people, to make sure it happens. It may not be this next election or the election after, but I'll be at every one of these meetings. I'm going door to door. I'm going to make sure that this changes, because people matter, even if you guys don't think so. And you may think that doing all this, building a pathway and stuff like that, that causes sleepless nights to long-term citizens. I had many sleepless. I had nights that I didn't spend with my son because I was worrying about this stuff. And that's unfair. That's not what a small town city government should be doing. I know that you guys are going to ignore this. You're going to listen to whatever Patanza says, and you're going to go that way. But it's wrong. I'm telling you right now, it's wrong. Like I said, I love you guys. I love everybody. I'm not a hateful person. I wish you guys all the best. I wish your families the best. But you guys have this one wrong. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you for your comments. Brandy, you have anyone else wishing to address the council?
Mayor, at this time, I don't see any members of the public wanting to speak.
Okay, we'll end the second citizen comment period. Do we have anything for the good of the order, council? Hearing none, I think our meeting stands adjourned. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.